Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lesson 4 of Prosperity by Charles Fillmore, this book that we are doing a book study of. I'm Reverend Wally White, and I'm with Unity in Greensboro, and here is my co-minister.
Hey, Wally, and hey, everyone else. I am Reverend Todd Humphrey. I am with Crystal Coast Unity in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. And I am delighted to be back tonight to join Wally as we dive into Charles Fillmore's classic text, Prosperity. And if you have not been joining us, I don't know what you're waiting on. We want to invite you to go ahead and go back and find those previous episodes and listen in. We're only up to the fourth lesson now. And we want you to communicate with us. We want you to say, hey, yeah, here's how that has shown up in my life. Or, oh, hold up a minute. I'm not sure I agree with that. Right, Wally? We want to hear from everybody.
Yeah, it's all about the conversation. Like, we're going to have a bit of a conversation as we go through and read, but we want to have a conversation with you all. So, clicking the like button is awesome. We know that you liked something about it or you connected in some way to it. But actually getting in there and asking a question, or if you don't have any questions, saying, yes, I agree with such and such. That's one of my favorite lines. Or even, if we say something and you're like, I'm not ringing truth in that, let's talk about that, because maybe we can further explain it in a way that you'll see the truth, or maybe you'll open our eyes to something that we're like, oh, I haven't thought about it in that way yet. That's what happens with conversations. And I think that's so important. And I think the information in this book is so important in helping us all live better lives.
Absolutely. So let's dive in. Again, we are starting with lesson 4 of prosperity. This is on page 56. And man, the inlet and outlet of divine mind. The possessions of the Father are not in stocks and bonds, but in the divine possibilities implanted in the mind and soul of every man. Through the mind of man, ideas are brought into being. Through the soul of man, God's wealth of love finds its expression. Now, I'm going to press pause and just to remind everyone, if you've not been joining us before now, when we say man, we mean mankind, humankind. This book was written many, many years ago, and if you don't know that, it might sound kind of sexist, but we know that we are talking about everyone because everyone has that divine potential within them.
Right. This is human.
Yes. So it is well said that the mind is I'm going to read that one again. It is well said that the mind is the crucible in which the ideal is transmuted into the real. This process of transformation is the spiritual chemistry we must learn before we are ready to work intelligently in the great laboratory of the Father's substance. There is no lack of material. There is to form what we will, and we can all draw on it as a resource according to our purpose. Wealth of consciousness will express itself in wealth of manifestation. I like that sentence. I'm going to read it one more time. Wealth of consciousness will express itself in wealth of manifestation. One who knows principle has a certain inner security given him by the understanding of God mind. Our affirmations are for the purpose of establishing in our consciousness a broad understanding of the principles on which all life and existence depend. Our religion is based on a science in which ideas are related to principle and to other ideas in a great universal mind that works under mental laws. It is not a new religion, nor a religious fad, but points out the real and the true in any religion. If you know principle, you are able to know at once whether a religion is founded on facts or has a basis of man-made ideas. In order to demonstrate principle, we must keep establishing ourselves in certain statements of the law. The more often you present to your mind a proposition that is logical and true, the stronger becomes that inner feeling of security to you. The mind of man is built on truth, And the clearer your understanding of truth is, the more substantial your mind becomes. There is a definite and intimate relation between what we call truth and this universal substance of being. When the one mind is called into action in your mind by your thinking about it, it lays hold of the substance by the law of attraction or sympathy of thought. Thus, the more you know about God, the more successful you will be in handling your body and all your affairs. The more you know about God, the healthier you will be. And of course, the healthier you are, the happier, more beautiful, and better you will be in every way. If you know how to take hold of the universal substance and mold it to your uses, you will be prosperous. Mind substance enters into every little detail of your daily life, whether you realize truth or not. However, to establish yourself in a certain security in the possession and use of universal life, love, intelligence, and substance, you must get a consciousness of it by first mentally seeing the truth. All true action is governed by law. Nothing just happens. There are no miracles. There is no such thing as luck. Nothing comes by chance. All happenings are the result of cause and can be explained under the law of cause and effect. This is a teaching that appeals to the most innate logic of our mind. Yet we sometimes feel like doubting it when we see things happen that have no apparent cause. These happenings that seem miraculous are controlled by laws that we have not yet learned and result from causes that we have not been able to yet understand. Man does not demonstrate according to the law, but according to his knowledge of the law. And that is why we must seek to learn more of it. God is law, and God is changeless. If we would bring forth the perfect creation, we must conform to law and unfold in our mind, body, and affairs as a flower unfolds by the principle of innate life, intelligence, and substance. The United States Congress establishes laws that rule the acts of all American citizens. Those who keep the laws are rewarded by the protection of the law. Congress does not see to it that men obey the laws. That is left to the executive department of the government. The same thing is true of the universal law. God has ordained the law, but does not compel of our doing. God has ordained the law, but does not compel us to follow it. We have free will, and the manner of our doing is left entirely to us. When we know the law and we work with it, we are rewarded by its protection and use it to our good. If we break the universal law, we suffer limitations, just as a convicted lawbreaker is limited to a cell or a prison. The Holy Spirit is the executive official through whom divine mind enforces its laws.
Can
You
we
can
stop
see,
and talk about law for a second?
yes, please.
I think, it's like, look, just for myself and my human experience, like I hear law and you think of breaking the law and you think of being punished for breaking the law. And that happens in the human experience of courts and laws and that sort of thing. But when we're talking about spiritual law, it sometimes feels like we're being punished for breaking some law, but it's never a punishment when it's coming from spirit, because God is good all the time. So if you accept that God is good all the time and you're having an unpleasant, unhappy experience, then if both of those are true, then what you're getting is the opportunity to see the route that you're going doesn't work. And that's awesome, because then you can try a different way. Because the nice thing about an unchangeable spiritual law is you can use it in your benefit rather than sit around and think you're being punished for something, because there is no spirit called God sitting around looking to punish people or punishing people in any way by accident, on purpose, on anything. So it's about like, but that doesn't mean that we don't use the law and sometimes in a way that's doesn't work. That it's not a punishment. It's a, oh, this route doesn't work. Let me try again. And I think that's a key element of what this is really telling us. Like this, you know, last lesson was about faith. This lesson is about man or human, right? About the human nature of living. And so that happens with the laws. And that's why it's so important to get that and to release the possibility that anybody or anything is out to do anything but help you live your highest and best life.
Right. The law provides us that which is in alignment with our consciousness. And sometimes we like to affirm what we want to receive, but we have that subconscious idea that we don't deserve it, or we have a subconscious thought, untrue error thought that keeps us from receiving. And so the law is always giving us exactly what we want, what we're willing to receive. So grateful expectancy.
I think you just said something that needs to get written in a few books. The law is always giving us what we want. And I think there are tons of people that could hear that statement and say, now let me give you a list of things that I've got that I did not want. But the message is that whatever our consciousness is calling forward, as far as spirit is concerned, that's what we're saying we want. That's why our words matter. But it's also important to know that you can't fake it with your words. Your words are simply an indication to you and to us what you're thinking and feeling, because that's what spirit is reading and taking its orders from.
It's taking its orders from the vibration, right? We pray to change our own vibration, not to change God. God is changeless. And we can say we all know people that say things with their mouth that are not true. They know they're not true. We know they're not true. And the universe knows it's not true. Right?
Right.
The great lie detector is you can say that you want something and look around your life.
Right.
And is it there or not? There's something that stands in the way of us having what we say we want.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there should be no guilt and no shame in that. It is the opportunity to look and examine, right? This is about examining ourselves and knowing
That's it.
That we are in alignment, that we can live that fifth principle, that we can be in integrity.
That's it.
That's all. Okay. 59. We're on the top of 59, the first paragraph, first full paragraph. You can see from this consideration that God has bestowed the power of divine mind on every person. You are using your organism, body, mind, and soul to carry out a law that God established as a guide for all creation. If you righteously fulfill this mission, you cannot fail to get the righteous results. If you fail to live in accordance with the law, well, that is your affair. God cannot help it if you are not following the law and by it demonstrating health, happiness, prosperity, and all good. Blackstone said that law is a rule of action. So with God's law, if you follow the rules of action, you will demonstrate truth. You will have all that God has prepared for you from the foundation of the world. What are the rules of the law? First, God is good and all his creations are good. I'm gonna say that again, and I invite if you are watching this, I invite you to write that or type it in the chat. First, God is good and all his creations are good.
And then accept, I'm going to say it for me, but everybody else has to use the same words to say it for them. I am one of those creations. So I'm good all the time.
All
Even
the
when
time.
I don't have evidence of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you get that firmly fixed in your mind, you are bound to demonstrate good, and nothing but good can come into your world. Think about that. I am good, and nothing but good can come into my world.
Mm.
Think that, let that be your first thought every morning. I'm saying that to me. I'm looking straight into my eyes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when you think of famous new thought statements like change your life, change your mind and change your life, and then you give, and here's a way that you can change your mind. I am
Yes.
good and only good can come into my experience.
Yes. Okay, where okay. If you let in the thought that there is such a thing as evil, and that you are as liable to evil as to good, then you may have conditions that conform to your idea of evil. But remember, evil and evil conditions are not recognized by divine mind. If you have thought of evil as a reality or as having any power over you, change your thought at once and begin to build up good brain cells that have never ever heard anything but good. Pray thus: I am a child of the absolute good. God is good and I am good. Everything that comes into my life is good, and I am going to have only the good. Establish this consciousness, and only the good will be attracted to you, and your life will be a perpetual joy. I cannot tell you why this is true, but I know that it is, and that you can prove it for yourself to your satisfaction. So I'm going to hit pause again for just a second. I'm going to read that last sentence from Charles one more time. I cannot tell you why this is true, but I know that it is, and that you can prove it for yourself to your satisfaction. If any of you that are listening in on this discussion of prosperity, and you get stuck and you're like, I'm not sure I buy that, I'm not sure I believe that, this is an invitation right here to do an empirical trial with your own life. Test it, prove this to be true. Use that prayer. Use that prayer on a daily basis for 21 days and see if nothing but good starts showing up. Because I believe, I mean, that's where my faith lies. This stuff is true. That's why I've switched gears halfway through my life and dedicated my life to these principles. And I invite you to test it. Prove
Yeah,
it to be true in your
never
own
believe
life.
anything because Charles wrote it or we're saying it or anybody. Pick the most trustworthy person you've got that you're hearing something from in some way. Don't trust them. Try it yourself. I mean, do trust them. Don't release all trust in the world, right? But like, but don't just take it for fact because somebody else said it or wrote it or it did, or even if I'm like, it worked for me. Like it may have to, let me back up. It probably will have to work for you in some slight adjustment because we're all individual people, right? So we all have our own going on, but it's like, so you got to find the route. Well, Wally said that he did step A, B, C, and D, and he had all this work, and I did it and it didn't work. Well, you may need to add an E or an F, or you may need to do B, E, D, A, like just test it. If you hear that there's some success that has happened from it, go about experimenting with it till you find your success, but do it with an expectation of receiving the success as step one.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. All right. Back to our text. If you will start right now with the idea of universal and eternal goodness uppermost in your mind, talk only about the good, and see with the mind's eye everything and everybody as good, Then you will soon be demonstrating all kinds of good. Good thoughts will become a habit, and good will manifest itself to you. You will see it everywhere. And people will be saying of you, I know that man is good and true. I have confidence in him. He makes me feel the innate goodness of all people. That is the way in which the one mind expresses itself through people. It is the law. Those who live in accordance with the law will get the desired results. Those who fail to do so will get the opposite results. The law also applies to our demonstrations of prosperity. We cannot be very happy if we are poor, and nobody needs to be poor. It is a sin to be poor. You may ask whether Jesus cited any example of poverty's being a sin. Yes. You will find it in the story of the prodigal son. This is often used as a text to preach about moral sinners, but a close study of it shows that Jesus was teaching the sin of lack and how to gain plenty. It is a wonderful prosperity lesson. The prodigal son took his inheritance and went into a far country where he spent it in a riotous living and came to want. When he returned to his father's house, he was not accused of moral shortcoming, as we should expect. Instead, the father said, bring forth quickly the best robe and put it on him. That was a lesson in good apparel. It is a sin to wear poor clothes. This may seem to some to be a rather sordid way of looking at the teaching of Jesus, but we must be honest. We must interpret it as he gave it, not as we think it ought to be. The next act of the father was to put a gold ring on the prodigal's finger, another evidence of prosperity. The Father's desire for us is unlimited good, not merely the means of a meager existence. The ring symbolizes the unlimited, that to which there is no end. It also represents omnipresence and omnipotence in the manifest world. When the Father gave the ring to the Son, he gave him the key to all the life activity. It was the symbol of his being a son and heir to all that the Father had. All that is mine is thine. The Father gives all that he has and is omnipotence, omniscience, all love, and all substance when we return to the consciousness of his house of plenty. Put shoes on his feet was the Father's next command of the servants. Feet represent that part of our understanding that comes into contact with earthly conditions. In the head or upper room, we have the understanding that contacts spiritual conditions. But when we read in Scripture anything about the feet, we may know that it refers to our understanding of things in the material world. The next thing the Father did for his returned son was to proclaim a feast for him. That is not the way we treat moral sinners, but decree punishment for them. We send them to jail, but the Father gives a feast to those who come to him for supply. He does not dole out only a necessary ration, but serves the fatted calf. Universal substance and life in its fullness and richness. The parable is a great lesson on prosperity, for it shows us that people who are dissipating their substance in a sense, those who are dissipating their substance in sense ways are sinners and eventually fall into a consciousness of lack. It also proves that they may become lawful and prosperous again by returning to the Father mind. When there are so many lessons in the Bible for moral delinquents, there is no need to twist the meaning of this parable to that purpose. It is so plainly a lesson on the cause of lack and want. Jesus expressly states that the youth wasted his substance in a far country, a place where the divine law of plenty was not recognized. There is a very close relation between riotous living and want. Persons who waste their substance in sensation come to want it in both physical and financial ways. If we would make the right use of the divine substance and the divine law, we must come back to the consciousness of the Father and conserve our body substance. Then health and prosperity will become naturally manifest. If we are not resourceful or secure in our use of the one divine substance, we are not secure in anything. Substance is a very important thing in our world. In fact, the foundation of it. Therefore, we should be secure in our understanding of it and use it according to God's law. Then let us enter into the very truth of being and observe the divine law. Let us realize that our Father is always here and that we are in a far country only when we forget God's presence. God is constantly giving us just what we will acknowledge and accept under the law. We can take our inheritance and divorce ourselves in consciousness from God, but we shall suffer the results. For then we shall not do things in divine wisdom and divine order, and there will be a famine in that land. Let us seek the divine wisdom to know how to handle our substance, and the law of prosperity will be revealed to us. To come into this realization, declare with faith and with all assurance, the all providing mind is my resource, and I am secure in my prosperity. One more time. The all providing mind is my resource, and I am secure in my prosperity.
And can we talk about that for a minute?
Well, yeah, let's do it.
Because ultimately, what the metaphysical definition of prosperity is that it's not like the cash, the material stuff, even a good love life, like that kind of all that stuff. Those are all icing. The cake, which is the prosperity, is the ideas. It is the mind being the source. What does the mind produce? The mind produces ideas, and maybe those are ideas of I've got an idea. It's also like how it's the functioning of using our human senses, our eyes, our ears, and translating it into a thought, into an idea, because that is the prosperity. Those thoughts, those ideas, those feelings, that is the prosperity, and that is what we have control over.
Yes.
And I also wanted to say, in the stuff that we were just reading, the word sin and sinners was coming up a lot. And, theoretically, most people who are studying with us are New Thought students, but maybe some aren't. And some that are need this reminder that when you're seeing those words, that it's really talking about simply missing the mark. That if you are missing the mark, if you are having a mistaken idea that you're taking action on, that's what we call a sin. That it's like this, nothing good's going to come from this because you're acting on a mistaken idea. So right. How could that possibly work out well? That's all metaphysically that lesson is. There's no damnation. There's no geographical location called hell. I've had to catch myself many times saying, oh, well, we don't believe in hell or the devil, but we do, just not in the traditional way. We do in the, if I wake up on the wrong side of the bed and then stick to it and then go about having a bad day and using it as an excuse for bad behavior and then say, well, I'm just having a bad day. Well, then stop and take a breath, because that is unnecessary. So stop doing it. Stop having the bad day. If you need to go back to bed, go do that. But don't blame. Who are you blaming? I'm having and look, I have bad days. I have bad days. And then sooner or later, it's like, I got to take a breath. Because I'm in control of how I'm going to think and feel about stuff. That doesn't mean that invitations to think and feel in a negative way aren't going to come up. They do often, almost every day.
Right.
Sometimes I take the invitation, I take the bait. As often as possible, and a lot more now because I've done this study, I'm able to get out of it a little bit faster. I'm one of those older bass, if you're fishing, that can shake that bait loose even if I took the bait, right? So yeah, please don't let a word like sin, a traditional word like that, get you caught up. In fact, look it up. If you don't have a Bible metaphysical dictionary, just Google metaphysical meaning and put in that traditional word, and then take ownership. Find your empowerment of taking ownership in it in a way that it works and serves you now, as opposed to a way that other people who maybe look at the Bible in a different way use it, that you already know doesn't serve you. If you know the way they use it don't serve you, then don't let them own how you think of the word and the messages.
Right.
I may have sidetracked there a little bit.
No, it's a vital piece of information to bring our attention back to, because it can be, really easy. One of the I want to touch briefly on this. One of the things that Charles does not go into in this description of the prodigal son, when the son comes back, the first thing the son does is he asks for forgiveness. And the father ignores it, doesn't respond to it. See, when we return back to the truth, we don't have to ask God for forgiveness, because God doesn't know that we've ever done anything wrong. Right? God is absolute good.
Yeah, I think it was a recording of Eric Butterworth that I was listening to, where I heard him say, don't ask God for forgiveness, because God can't forgive you. God would have to hold in mind that you did something wrong in order to forgive you. You're the one that's holding something wrong or something negative. God's not capable. Good cannot hold a thought of bad. So for the forgiveness you need is up to you to accept. It's already been given, because the bad was never even seen or acknowledged in that place of good, in that place of God.
Right.
That's a powerful lesson that, like,
isn't that good news?
Like, after I'd already done study, I was like, what? And like, so yeah, I think that's good info.
Yes. Wait, can you pick up and read now? I need to grab a cup of water.
Yeah. Are we on primitive men? Is that where we are? The bottom paragraph?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We're at the last paragraph on 63.
Okay. Primitive men did not contend for the products of nature so long as they could easily pick the fruits from the trees and sleep beneath the branches. When they began to live in caves, contention arose over the best places, and the strongest were usually the victors. Success leads to success. Those who were able to take the best did so, and proved the law that whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have abundance. This seems at first thought to be an unjust law, but it has always prevailed in the affairs of the world. Jesus, the greatest of metaphysicians, taught it as a divine law and gave it his condemnation. He could not have done this otherwise, for it is righteous law. And wait, I said condemnation, and that's not true. Commendation. That's a whole different word than condemnation. So he was saying it's good, right? He could not have done this otherwise, for it is a righteous law that man shall have what he earns, that industry, effort, and ability be rewarded and laziness discouraged. This law operates in every department of being. Those who seek the things that the material realm has to offer usually find them. Those who strive for moral excellence usually attain that goal. Those who aspire to spiritual rewards are often also rewarded. The law is that we get what we want and work for, and all experience and history have proved it a good law. If this law were removed, world progress would cease and the race become extinct. Where there is no reward for effort, there will be no effort, and society will degenerate. We may talk wisely about the inner urge, but when it has no outer field of action, it eventually becomes discouraged and ceases to act. When men evolve, when humans evolve spiritually to a certain degree, they open up inner faculties that connect them with cosmic mind and attain results that are sometimes so startling that they seem to be miracle workers. What seems miraculous is the action of forces on planes of consciousness not previously understood. When a man releases the powers of his soul, he does marvels in the sight of the material minded, but he has not departed from the law. He is merely functioning in a consciousness that has been sporadically manifested by great men in all ages. Man is greater than all the other creations of God mind because he has the ability to perceive and to lay hold of the ideas inherent in God mind, and through faith bring them into manifestation. Thus, evolution proceeds by man's laying hold of primal spiritual ideas and expressing them in and through his consciousness. In the exercise of his I am identity, man needs to develop certain stabilizing ideas. One of them is continuity or loyalty to truth. In the scriptures and in life, we have many examples of how love sticks to the thing on which it has set its mind. Nothing so tends to stabilize and unify all the other faculties of mind as love. That is why Jesus gave as the greatest commandment that we love God. When you first begin to think of God as everywhere present substance, your mind will not adhere continuously to the idea. You will drop your attention after a while and think, I haven't enough to meet all our bills. There you have made a break and have lost momentum in your ongoing and must patch it up quickly. Affirm, this is the quote, I am not going to be led astray. The old ideas are error and they are nothing. They have no power over me. I am going to stick to this proposition. God is love, the substance of my supply. God is love, the substance of my supply. Ruth, the Moabitish woman, became so attached to Naomi, spiritual thought, that she would not leave her, but accompanied her back to Palestine. She was loyal and steadfast because of her love. What was the result of her stick-to-itiveness? She was at first a gleaner, then became the wife of a very rich man and was immortalized as one of the ancestries of David. This lesson of abiding in our highest ideals is one that we must understand. Nothing is so important as sticking to the ideal and never giving up the work we have set out to accomplish. Affirm the law continuously and be loyal to it, and you will become successful in its demonstration. You have doubtless found that there is a spiritual law that brings into manifestation the thoughts we concentrate our attention on. A divine universal law of mind activity that is unfailing. Some adverse condition of your own thought has prevented a full demonstration. Do not let this swerve you from your loyalty to the law. You may seem to attain results very slowly, but that is the best reason for sticking closely to your ideal and not changing your mind. Be loyal to principle, and the adverse condition will break up. Then the true light will come, and the invisible substance you have been faithfully affirming will begin to reveal itself to you in all its fullness of good. Jesus stressed the idea that God has made abundant provision for all his children, even to the birds of the air and the lilies of the field. The Lord has clothed you with soul substance as gloriously as he did Solomon. But you must have faith in this all-providing substance of good, and by your continuity of imagination, set it to forming the things you desire. If you are persistent in working this idea in your conscious mind, it will eventually drop down into your subconscious mind and continue to work there where things take form and become manifest. Invisible substance, when your subconscious becomes filled with it to the overflowing point, will ooze out, as it were, into all your affairs. You will become more prosperous and successful so gradually, simply, and naturally that you will not realize it, that it derives from a divine source and in answer to your prayers. We must realize all the while, however, that whatever we put as seed into the subconscious soil will eventually bring forth after its kind, and we must exercise the greatest caution so that we do not think or talk about insufficiencies or allow others to talk to us about it. As we sow in mind, so shall we reap in manifestation. I'd love to take a pause on that for a second, because this is talking about something that's very natural to all of us, which is the negative chatter of, and letting other people say, oh, well, you can't do that. Oh, well, you're not qualified for that. Well, who do you think you are that you're talking to God? I know who I am. And I'm going to hang on to that truth and that love. And that involves the faith of knowing that I know what I know and that I'm going to put it into action. That you can't allow yourself, which is the first critic, or any outer voices of other people, even those that love you and just want the best for you, but are trying to talk you out of your good. You have to hold on and be steadfast in it. You got anything on that, Todd? You're muted, Todd.
Nothing there at all that I can argue with. I mean, I agree completely. You know, one of the things that is so clear to me now, having been a student of New Thought for so long, is that there are, when we start using these principles and understanding the law and diving into this truth that Charles is directing us to, our lives change, right? Our lives change. And there are people that kind of like us being the way we were.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to tell you, no, that's not true. No, that's not right. No, you can't. And we get to love them, right? Because we still have to acknowledge that they are expressions of the divine, just like we are, living at the most expansive place in consciousness that they are in. But we don't need to entertain some of their limited ideas, because we know there is no lack. We know there is no limitation. And we bless them. But we don't take in all that negative talk.
Right. Yeah. If you think in terms of, just as an example, being in a crowded store, I'll go with Walmart for now. But there are a whole lot of conversations going on in that one store. There are a whole lot of conversations going on around you. You don't hear most of it. So if you hear it, just accept first, bless and release whatever is coming from those loved ones that maybe are saying something that's not serving you. But accept that if you're hearing it, You're hearing it because there's something in you about it. And if it's negative, there's something that you're being invited to release, to put some love into, to heal, to let go of in some way. If you're hearing it, there's something in it for you, not
Yes.
a truth of accepting some unpleasant, unsupportive stuff, not that at all, but in giving you your chance to really claim your empowerment to say that's not true. This is happening for me, and I'm going about it in this way, and holding on to that. I say it often. I just said it a couple of minutes ago, but I love the saying, you got to know that you know what you know. And when you do, you can't be shook off of it so easily. People can't come, they may come shake the tree and see if you can come back down to where they're comfortable right now. But the best you can do is bless them where they are and keep shining in a way that they have the opportunity to come to where you are now in consciousness. Or sometimes you got to let them go. That's not anything negative about them. You can't, I know I said this a week or two ago, you can't get poor enough to make somebody else rich.
Right.
You can empty your bank account and somebody can have a good spending spree and have a good day or a good few weeks or a good year. But if nobody can be rich until they're in the mindset of living rich and being rich. And so we're all called to help people. If you got a bunch of money, by all means, help some people who maybe don't have that. But also, while you're helping them with an immediate need, help them more in teaching them to fish. Maybe you got to give them a fish or two to get them going, but you're going to do way more helping somebody fish than just taking on the responsibility of handing out the fish.
Yeah.
Let's see, where was I? Some of us are well-meaning friends. Yeah, I think that's where I am.
Yep.
Okay. This is the first full paragraph in the middle of the page of 67. Some of our well-meaning friends have a way of loading us up with hard times ideas that disperse this prosperity substance that we have accumulated. Sometimes even one adverse thought will cause it to escape. Then we must go back and patch up the broken reservoir of substance thinking. We have to hold it to our mind in all its fullness, and we should not let go of it for a minute, lest the work of demonstration be delayed. When you retire at night, let your last thought be about the abundance of spiritual substance. See it filling all the house and the minds of all the people in the house. That potent thought will then sink into your subconsciousness and continue to work whether you are asleep or awake. The law of substance is a divine law. This means that it is a law of mind and must work through mind. God will not go to the grocery and bring food to your table. But when you continue to think about God as your real supply, everything in your mind begins to awaken and to contact the divine substance as you mold it in your consciousness. Ideas begin to come which will connect you with the visible manifestation. You first get the ideas in consciousness direct from their divine source, and then you begin to demonstrate in the outer. It is an exact law, and it is scientific and unfailing. First the blade, then the ear, then the full grain in the ear. In case y'all aren't country folk, we're talking about corn. So knowing that we're talking about corn, I'm going to say that again. By the way, I'm not really country folk, but I did grow up in the South. First the blade, then the ear, then the full grain in the ear. When you work in harmony with this universal law, every needed thing is abundantly supplied. Your part is simply to fulfill the law. That is, to keep your mind filled with divine substance to store up spiritual substance until the mind is filled with it, and it cannot help but manifest in your affairs in obedience to the law. Whatsoever hath to him shall be given. But you are not fulfilling the law when you allow poverty-stricken thoughts to dwell in your mind. They draw other like thoughts. Your consciousness will have no room for the truth that prosperity is for you. Poverty or prosperity, it all depends on you. All that the Father has is yours, but you alone are responsible for the relationship of the Father's good in your life. Through conscious recognition of your oneness with the Father and his abundance, you draw the living substance into your visible supply. I'm pausing to say that means that even if Sally Sue said such and such, and that wasn't, that wasn't serving you well, that ticked you off, that upset you, that made you question for a moment, or made you feel like she's questioning for a moment, fine, but you cannot afford to get on the phone and call your friend and say, do you know what she said to me today? And then keep talking about it, because in order to talk about it, you got to think about it. And now you've got it in your head, and that space that you're supposed to be filling with the God substance in your mind so that it eventually oozes out is getting taken up with, do you know what she said to me today? You can't afford to give her free rent in your mind with that, because then you're going to bed, right, thinking about that and giving it a chance for you to start giving it some reality in your own mind, because you're letting it ruminate. You have to let it go as quickly as possible. That's that whole bless and release thing. Okay, let's see where I was here. Do not hesitate to think that prosperity is for you. Do not feel unworthy. Banish all thoughts of being a martyr to poverty. No one enjoys poverty, but some people seem to enjoy the sympathy and compassion that they can excite because of it. Overcome any leaning in the direction and every belief that you were meant to be poor. No one is ever hopeless until they have resigned to this imagined fate. Think prosperity, talk prosperity, not in general, but in specific terms, not as something for the other fellow, but as your very own right. Deny every appearance of failure. Stand by your guns and affirm supply, support, and success in the very face of question and doubt. Then give thanks for plenty in all your affairs, knowing for a certainty that your good is now being fulfilled in spirit, in mind, and in manifestation. A prosperity treatment using the 23rd Psalm, revised by Charles. The Lord is my banker. My credit is good. He maketh me lie down in the consciousness of omnipresent abundance. He giveth me the key to his strong box. He restoreth my faith in his riches. He guideth me in the paths of prosperity for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk in the very shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy silver and thy gold, they secure me. Thou preparest a way for me in the presence of the collector. Thou fillest my wallet with plenty, my measure runneth over. Surely goodness and plenty will follow me all the days of my life, and I shall do business in the name of the Lord forever. And that concludes this lesson. We're in charge of our thoughts, everybody. So what do you want to think about? I know that there are things that sometimes stand up and are waving even and becoming full-on distractions of what you want to think about. I've been at that place where I had that stack of bills and the check came in that wasn't going to pay them all. So, and I've lived with that sinking feeling in my gut that I'm struggling to make it and all that stuff. Don't allow that to be the distraction. Give thanks for the bills that check can pay, or give thanks for, if there wasn't a check, that something else is going to work out, that people will leave you alone till the check, whatever the thing is. Look for something to affirm and be good. Use the denials and the affirmations, but get yourself to a place of holding on to the I am rich in substance, and that substance is my mind first. And it's up to me to keep that healthy and working in a way that serves me best.
You got it. I mean, this is
my box. No.
it's okay. I like having someone up here with me.
Right. Yeah.
This is the teaching, right? I mean, this whole understanding of prosperity, right? Get into this right now, that it is the activity of our minds that determines the experience we're going to have. And are we going to have an experience of unlimited good, or are we going to have an experience that's limited and an appearance of lack? Because the difference is what you hold in consciousness. Because in truth, there is no limitation, there is no lack, and so we get to clean up our thinking. We get to have our divine ideas to replace those limited ideas, those things that would have us think that less than is okay, and it's not.
Right. And it's,
If you want more,
right.
if you want more.
And it's, look, we're all going to have that moment, whether it's the thing like the stack of bills, or whether there's a physical challenge going on. There are going to be things that make it awful difficult to say today is a great day. But find some way you can say that with truth. I was calling Della Reese. I called Della Reese all the time, as much as I could, when she was living on this plane. But I was calling her at a time when I knew she was having some physical challenges, and I knew not to say, "How are you today? Are you still sick? Are you all that junk, right?" But what I found that I felt some truth in saying was, "How are you? How are you feeling today?" Which opened the door for her to, she could have said, there were days when the truth would have been, well, my body's aching and I just don't feel like I can get out of bed. But you better believe those words never came out of her mouth. What she said was, I'm getting better and better every day. I'm better today, and I'm looking forward to how much better I'm gonna be tomorrow. Well, how are you today? I'm a child of God in which he is well pleased, and so are you. God bless. Find some truth that you can say, even though there's going to be a day that you're like, nope, not this one, but it is always there. Like, search for it. If you need to search for it, search for it. It's a valuable search to take.
Absolutely. Which I'll let everybody know, when anybody asks me how I'm doing, I'm amazing. I am amazing. And sometimes I truly feel like I am amazing. And sometimes it's an affirmation to remind myself,
right,
of all the abundance of my life. Right. And it's not that I lucked out to receive it, right? Because luck's not a thing. Charles told us in this chapter, right? It has to do with the consciousness that we hold.
Yeah, it's that thing where people say, I was doing this, and then out of the blue, this good just showed up. Blue's just another word for God. Out of God, this thing just showed up. And it didn't just show up. It showed up because you've been praying for it and talking about it and saying you wanted an answer to a prayer. And if it's not immediately recognizable, it's because while you thought the answer was such and such, this is it. This is, it's like, and then this good showed up. Out of God, my good showed up. And expect for it to show up every day. And it will in various ways. Something will when we expect it. And our human
Amen and
experience
amen.
will sometimes, when we're being tested, God's not testing us, we're testing us. When, so it's like, oh, I feel I'm just being tested today. Okay, well then stop, because you're testing you. So look for the good in it. Like, you have to be steadfast about that. And as I'm saying this to you, I am speaking to me. I am speaking to me. I have to be steadfast in looking for and claiming the good if I want to have any at all. And I'd like to have a whole bunch of it all the time.
Yes.
All right. I think we're good.
Reverend Wally, thanks for this time together.
Thank you, Reverend Todd.
I am going to affirm the continued prosperity of both of us as individuals, both of the congregations that we serve, and all of the people that are joining us in rediscovering these incredible words from Charles Fillmore. So thanks for the time.
All right. We look forward to your comments. Please make some comments, because I love to talk to people. And so I'll get to typing just as quick as you do. All right. Good night, everybody, or day or morning or whatever time. Bye.
Be well, everybody.